Here is today's account of a striking near-death experience involving a woman named Graça P. in 1982 in Portugal. Graça describes her husband's desperate attempts to revive her. While he struggles to bring her back to life, she finds herself observing the scene from an inexplicable perspective, filled with love and tranquility. Shall we watch her experience? I saw and heard my husband crying, but I didn't understand why. For me, everything was calm and I was fine. I told him, "Manuel, I'm okay, it's over," but he didn't hear me. I insisted until he grabbed the device to measure my blood pressure, placed it on my arm, and upon seeing the result, he groaned. He tried several times in vain because the device didn't give any signal. I kept looking at him and saying that I was fine, but he didn't hear me. I saw him take a small mirror and place it in front of my nose and mouth, but there was no mist on the mirror. He tried again, and I kept trying to talk to him, saying that I was fine and that I didn't feel any pain. I couldn't explain why the mirror wasn't fogging up, but I was more concerned about calming my husband. I was fine until he muttered, "Please, darling, don't leave me, come back to me. I need you." I was telling him, "Listen to me, I'm fine, it's over." But suddenly I realized that I was looking from a higher point, as if I were lying on the bed. He was using the mirror and the blood pressure monitor anxiously, but I didn't understand the real reason. I told him that I didn't feel pain and that everything was over, but in fact, he couldn't hear me. Finally, he stopped and leaned over my body to cry, saying, "Darling," the affectionate version of my name, "don't leave me, please, what will become of our son?" At that time, my husband was a practicing Catholic. I realized that something absurd was happening. I was aware that I was observing the scene from near the ceiling. It was strange. How could I see my husband crying over my body? I looked carefully to make sure it was really me, and it was. How was this possible? What was happening? I wasn't scared, just intrigued. I tried to find an explanation, but I couldn't. I looked around in astonishment and believe I stopped hearing my husband. I was carefully looking around the ceiling. I saw the chandelier and the door frame of the closet. Now I was positioned near the ceiling, intrigued by this situation. To my right was the wardrobe with 3 doors, and I could see the surface of the top of the door covered in dust. I remember thinking, "Oh, I forgot to clean the dust here." That's when I saw a blue sheet of paper with 25 lines covered in dust. It was a document I had been looking for and couldn't find. I thought, "It's here. I've looked so hard for this. It's here, covered in dust. I'll have to clean everything more carefully." I was aware that this wasn't a dream. Below, I saw my husband shaking my body, and I felt sorry for him. I didn't think I was dead because I could watch the scene from a physically impossible point. I couldn't understand anything. I felt disturbed. I looked at the wall behind me and saw the clock. When I tried to see the time, I felt pulled and left that space. In the next instant, I was in a completely dark place. I felt very scared and disoriented. I extended my arms, trying to reach a wall or a piece of furniture, but I couldn't touch anything. I remember moving forward with my arms outstretched, trying to orient myself. I didn't call for God or saints. For me, they didn't exist. I decided to walk in one direction, at least try to move. I stretched my arms forward and moved. That's when I heard a voice saying, "Don't be afraid, we're here to help you." I extended my arms in the direction of the voice, but found only emptiness. Another voice and another said the same thing. I felt their presence, but I couldn't touch them. At some point, I realized I wasn't hearing them with my ears, but with my thoughts. How was that possible? I realized I had no choice. I was in darkness without knowing where I was, and whatever was there was no one to ask for help. These voices seemed like people to me because I could understand what they were saying. I was intrigued, wanting to know where I was. If I couldn't see them, maybe I was blind. And I heard the response that came inside me. "No, you're not blind." I then stopped trying to touch them and mentally accepted their help. I was scared. I can even say I was now terrified. The total darkness left me disoriented. They said, "Come." I asked, "Where to?" They replied, "Come, follow us." Since I couldn't see, I said, "Oh, never mind." Whoever was communicating with me was situated to my right. I felt something like energy, like static electricity or magnetism that I can't define. I also felt that there were other energies around me. I gave up asking questions and let it go. I felt my body taking the position of lying face down. I didn't feel agitated. Whoever was with me told me I wouldn't fall. We moved slowly in the darkness, or at least it seemed that way. With no point of reference, I couldn't tell at what speed I was moving. I felt like I was sliding. I asked, "Where are we going?" They answered, "Stay calm, just go." At some point, a tiny light appeared in the darkness. They said, "Look, that's where we're going." I had no more questions. As we moved towards the light, the darkness disappeared. I didn't feel like I was traveling through a tunnel. I felt like I was traveling in a projected cone of light, like when you use a flashlight in the dark and project a cone of light. That's how I can describe that moment. I started to feel anxious. I wanted to be close to the light. To me, it was a star that would illuminate the landscape. When we were closer, I tried to look at my companions. I couldn't see them, but I continued to feel them near me. I was calm, as if everything that was happening was natural. I understood. We reached a point where the clarity illuminated everything, and I saw a landscape, but I didn't have time to look at the details because it seemed like we were traveling at an unimaginable speed. Suddenly, I saw the earth and the moon in the distance. I saw the sun moving away and was amazed. There were colors that I can't define because they don't fit into the color palette we have here on Earth. They were shades that created layers like transparent and overlapping plates. They were beautiful. I was ecstatic. I let myself go without fear. I was amazed. We passed through tons of dust, and then more and more stars appeared, moving away as we advanced. I could see the light of the stars without difficulty. That spatial landscape was very beautiful. I was like a curious traveler observing everything, despite the movement being too fast to catch the details. I remember understanding it seemed like I saw the stars in almost infinite planes. I understood everything, so I didn't ask any more questions. I looked and marveled at the landscape. I don't know how to describe the beauty of the stars. I was fascinated, not even looking at the initial light. My invisible companions were still with me, but I felt like they were being left behind slowly. And to me, that was a normal fact. The initial companion, who was to my right, was still present, and I could feel him. I looked at the light towards which we were heading. It was as powerful as the sun, but its light didn't hurt. I looked directly at it, but felt no discomfort. The same happened when we passed any star. None of those lights caused pain. The colors were so beautiful and different from those I knew. I was moving, but I don't even remember seeing my body at those moments. That wasn't even important. The further I was from planet Earth, the less the existence of my family mattered to me. I didn't think about my son, and that was very strange. I remember having a feeling similar to what we have when, after a long absence, we return home. I felt like I was coming home. I was at peace and as happy as I had never been before. At some point, the first light emitted sounds that I can't define. The sound came out like a wave. That's what I call it because it moved like ocean waves. It was a wave of light and energy that I don't know how to define. I felt fear, but my companion told me to stay calm and that nothing bad would happen to me. I remained watching the wave as it approached, waiting to see what would happen. When the wave touched me, I felt that it emanated love. It was such a great love that even if combined with the love of my parents, my husband, my son, the whole family, it couldn't compare. It was like a grain of sand in the desert in comparison. I had never felt anything like it, and a new wave formed. When it reached me, I felt loved in an inexplicable way. I wanted to go to the source that emanated so much love. I changed my focus from what was around me to concentrate only on that strange star. I wanted to embrace it soon. Each wave that touched me made me feel happier and happier, as if I had always been part of that love. When I was close, the light said mentally, "Stop." I stopped, even without wanting to. It said, "You need to go back." I said, "Go back?" It insisted, "You need to go back. Your husband needs you, and so does your son." I replied, "No, please, I want to stay." It said, "You can't. You need to go back. Your husband will find another woman, and your son has his father and grandparents. They don't need me. Let me stay." It replied, "You need to go back. You have duties to fulfill." I pleaded, "But I want to stay. I've never felt so much love in my life. Don't send me back." It replied, "You need to go back. Your mission is not over yet." I asked, "Mission? What mission? I've suffered so much and never been bad. Please, I want to stay here." It said, "You can't. Go back." In the next instant, everything disappeared. The pain returned, I breathed, and I was in bed with my husband crying with joy while I cried with sadness. At that time, the nearest hospital was about 8 miles away and provided services to the community so poorly that anyone who needed to go there was scared. I was so tired that I just wanted to rest. My husband called the doctor, who didn't answer. I narrated my whole experience to my husband, and we both cried with emotion. He was so moved to have me back safely, and I was emotional because of the experience and the frustration of returning. My husband said that after I put my hand on my chest and tried to breathe, I didn't open my eyes. How could I see everything that had happened? I told my husband, "I'm sorry, but I didn't want to come back." Everything was so beautiful, and there was so much love. When our 4-year-old son came back from a walk with his maternal grandparents and came to hug us, I felt a sense of guilt for wanting to leave him motherless, but the pain of leaving that environment of love was still with me. My husband went to see the document I said was on top of the closet. He put a chair to climb and found it, covered in dust, exactly as I had seen. We had never heard of an experience like that. The next morning, my husband took me to a reputable doctor, and after a long examination, he did an electrocardiogram, chest x-rays, flexible and reasoning tests, among other exams. Then he informed us that I had had a cardiac and respiratory arrest due to an allergic reaction to the chemical composition of aspirin, and that I was very lucky to have survived. My husband asked if we should have gone to the hospital, and he said I would never have arrived alive. He thought I seemed to have mild heart and lung injuries, but that I could live many years with them. I tried to talk to the doctor about what had really happened to me, but he didn't allow it. Instead, he said, "Grace, you were unconscious and 1 step from death. I'm absolutely sure you didn't hear anything." Going home, my husband and I decided to keep what had happened a secret, afraid that someone would consider us crazy. The test was done and considered normal for a person of my age. I told my husband about the blue paper I was looking for. He took a chair and found the document exactly where I said, covered in dust. Graça hid this account for a long time, fearing she would be called crazy or something similar. But we want to encourage anyone who has had this type of experience not to keep it to themselves, but to share it with us here. Experiences like Graça's bring comfort and hope to those who have lost loved ones and show that real life indeed exists after death. I'll leave it here for now and see you in the next video.